Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Key themes and topics in gender studies and discourse analysis. The exploration of language and identity within gender studies and discourse analysis, particularly through the lens of key scholars like Penelope Eckert, Sally McConnell-Ginet, Julia T. Wood, and Michel Foucault, reveals the intricate ways in which language functions as both a mirror and a mold for gender identities. These contributions, ranging from the dynamics of communities of practice to the socio-cognitive aspects of discourse, illuminate the performative nature of gender, showcasing how gender identities are not only reflected in language but are actively shaped and negotiated through it. This deep dive into the relationship between language and gender identity underscores the critical role of discourse in constructing and deconstructing the norms and expectations surrounding gender within various social contexts. 1. Language and identity. Language and identity form a critical nexus within gender studies and discourse analysis, especially in the work of Penelope Eckert and Sally McConnell-Ginet, who have made significant contributions to our understanding of how language functions in the construction of gender identities. Their research emphasizes the dynamic and performative nature of gender, showcasing how language not only reflects but actively shapes and negotiates gender identities within social contexts. Through their insights, we gain a deeper appreciation of the complex interplay between language use and the social construction of gender. 1. Penelope Eckert's contributions. Communities of practice. Eckert's work has been instrumental in advancing the concept of communities of practice as spaces where linguistic and social identities are co-constructed. She argues that gender identities are not merely imposed from above by societal norms but are actively worked out within these local social groups. This perspective highlights the agency individuals have in using language to perform and negotiate their gender identities in line with, or in opposition to, broader societal expectations. Variationist sociolinguistics. Eckert's approach to sociolinguistics, with a focus on variation, examines how linguistic choices vary systematically with social variables, including gender. By analyzing how different ways of speaking are associated with different gender identities, Eckert's research demonstrates how language use both reflects and constructs social distinctions. 2. Sally McConnell-Ginet's insights. Language and gendered norms. McConnell-Ginet has explored the ways in which language embeds and transmits gendered norms and expectations. Her work examines how everything from the semantics of words to the structure of conversations can subtly reinforce or challenge gender stereotypes and roles. She has been particularly attentive to how language use contributes to the perpetuation of inequalities and the ways in which linguistic practices can either entrench or dismantle gendered assumptions. The dynamic nature of language and gender. McConnell-Ginet emphasizes the dynamic, constantly evolving relationship between language and gender. She argues that understanding this relationship requires attention to both the broader socio-political context and the specificities of individual interactions. Her work underscores the importance of considering how changes in societal attitudes toward gender and sexuality are reflected in and propelled by changes in language use. 3. Key themes and topics. Performativity and agency. Both Eckert and McConnell-Ginet contribute to a nuanced understanding of gender performativity, highlighting how gender identities are enacted through language. Their research underlines the agency individuals possess in constructing their gendered selves through linguistic choices, within the constraints and opportunities afforded by their social environments. Intersectionality. A significant theme in their work is the intersectional nature of identity, acknowledging that gender is just one of many social variables that intersect in the construction of identities. Language plays a critical role in mediating these intersections, with implications for how individuals navigate their complex social identities. Implications for social change. By elucidating the ways in which language is implicated in the construction and negotiation of gender identities, Eckert's and McConnell-Ginet's research offers pathways for social change. Understanding the role of language in perpetuating gender norms and inequalities is a crucial step toward challenging these discourses and promoting greater gender inclusivity and equality in society. The contributions of Penelope Eckert and Sally McConnell-Ginet to the fields of gender studies and discourse analysis offer profound insights into the role of language in constructing gender identities. Their work not only enriches academic understandings of language and gender but also has important implications for everyday practices of communication, highlighting the power of language as both a site of gendered constraint and a tool for potential transformation. 2. Power and inequality. Power and inequality are central themes in gender studies and discourse analysis, providing a lens through which the dynamics of gendered interactions and the construction of gender norms can be critically examined. Julia T. Wood and Michel Foucault, though coming from different disciplinary backgrounds and theoretical orientations, have each contributed significantly to our understanding of how power relations are mediated through communication and discourse, and how these processes contribute to the perpetuation of gender inequalities. 1. Julia T. Wood on communication and gender. Julia T. Wood, a prominent figure in the field of communication studies, has extensively explored the intersections of communication, gender, and culture. Her work is instrumental in illuminating how gender is constructed, maintained, and negotiated through everyday communicative practices. Gendered communication styles. Wood has examined the different communication styles and patterns that are typically socialized into men and women, highlighting how these styles reflect and reinforce societal gender norms. She argues that these differences are not inherent but are learned through socialization processes, contributing to the construction of gendered identities. Communication and gender inequality. Wood's research also addresses the role of communication in perpetuating gender inequalities. She explores how language use, media representations, and interpersonal communication practices can both reflect and sustain unequal power dynamics between genders. Wood advocates for critical awareness of these communicative practices as a step toward challenging gender stereotypes and achieving greater equity. 2. Michel Foucault's theories on discourse and power. Michel Foucault, a French philosopher and social theorist, provided a foundational framework for understanding the relationship between discourse, knowledge, and power. Although not focused exclusively on gender, Foucault's theories offer valuable insights into the mechanisms through which gender inequalities are discursively constructed and institutionalized. Power, knowledge. Foucault's concept of power, knowledge emphasizes that power relations are embedded within discourses and that knowledge is both a product and an instrument of power. This perspective is crucial for analyzing how discourses on gender contribute to the construction of gendered knowledge and how this knowledge legitimates power imbalances. Discursive formations. Foucault's analysis of discursive formations, or the rules and structures that govern the production of discourse within a society, helps illuminate how certain gender norms and identities become normalized. By examining the discursive practices that define what is sayable and knowable about gender, scholars can uncover the underlying power dynamics that shape gender relations. 3. Power and inequality in gender studies and discourse analysis. Integrating the insights of Julia T. Wood and Michel Foucault, researchers can explore the complex ways in which power and inequality are communicated and sustained through gendered discourses. This includes analyzing gender discourses, examining the content and structure of discourses across various contexts, e.g., media, politics, education, to understand how they produce and reinforce gender norms and inequalities. Understanding the performative nature of gender. Applying Foucault's theories to analyze how discursive practices contribute to the performative enactment of gender, highlighting the potential for resistance and change within these discursive frameworks. Promoting equitable communication practices. Drawing on Wood's research to develop strategies for fostering more equitable communication practices that challenge traditional gender norms and encourage a more inclusive understanding of gender diversity. The contributions of Julia T. Wood and Michel Foucault provide critical frameworks for understanding the intricate relationship between discourse, power, and gender inequality. By examining how gender is constructed and negotiated through communication and discourse, scholars can uncover the mechanisms through which gender inequalities are perpetuated and identify pathways toward greater gender equity. 3. Representation of gender in media. The representation of gender in media has been a focal point of analysis within both gender studies and discourse analysis, highlighting how media narratives and images reflect, reinforce, and sometimes challenge societal norms and values regarding gender. Key contributions by Gay Tuckman and Laura Mulvey have significantly shaped the discourse on media representations of gender, particularly concerning the portrayal of women and the concept of the male gaze. 1. Gay Tuckman and the Symbolic Annihilation of Women in Media. Gay Tuckman's seminal work in the 1970s introduced the concept of the symbolic annihilation of women in media, a critical analysis of how women's experiences and contributions are marginalized, trivialized, or rendered invisible in media representations. Tuckman's research demonstrated that women are often underrepresented in media content, and when they do appear, it is frequently in roles that reinforce traditional gender stereotypes, such as caregivers or objects of male desire. This underrepresentation and stereotyping contribute to the perpetuation of gender inequalities by reinforcing societal norms that limit women's roles and contributions. Key insights. Tuckman's work shed light on the power of media not just to mirror reality but to shape it by selectively representing or omitting certain groups and narratives. Her analysis of the symbolic annihilation of women in media underscored the need for more equitable and diverse representations that reflect the complexities of women's lives and contributions. 2. Laura Mulvey and the Male Gaze. Laura Mulvey's influential essay, Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema, 1975, introduced the concept of the male gaze, a critical theory in film studies and feminist media analysis. Mulvey argued that mainstream cinema is constructed for the pleasure of the male viewer, with women often depicted as passive objects of male desire. This male gaze not only objectifies women but also establishes a power dynamic in which the viewer is male and active, and the viewed is female and passive. Cinematic techniques and the male gaze. Mulvey pointed out how cinematic techniques, such as camera angles and editing, are employed to objectify the female body, aligning the spectator with a heterosexual male point of view. This creates a dynamic where women are seen as objects rather than subjects, reinforcing gendered power imbalances. Broader implications. While Mulvey's analysis focused on cinema, the concept of the male gaze has been expanded to analyze how similar dynamics operate in other media forms and cultural practices, including advertising, television, and visual art. The male gaze serves as a framework for understanding how gender and power are constructed and negotiated in visual culture. 3. Representation of gender in media, contemporary relevance. The insights of Tuckman and Mulvey remain highly relevant for contemporary analyses of gender representation in media. Their work informs ongoing discussions about media diversity, the impacts of stereotyping, and the ways in which media can both challenge and perpetuate societal norms around gender. Challenges and opportunities. In the current media landscape, where digital and social media play an increasingly prominent role, the dynamics of gender representation, objectification, and the gaze are complexified. There are both challenges, such as the perpetuation of harmful stereotypes and norms, and opportunities, including the potential for more diverse and empowering representations of gender. Interdisciplinary analysis. Examining the representation of gender in media through the lens of gender studies and discourse analysis involves an interdisciplinary approach that draws on theories of gender, power, media, and culture to critically analyze how gender is constructed, represented, and contested in media discourses. The contributions of Gay Tuckman and Laura Mulvey to understanding the representation of gender in media have laid the groundwork for critical analyses of how media narratives and images construct and communicate gendered meanings. By continuing to interrogate these representations, scholars and practitioners can contribute to the ongoing efforts to challenge and transform gender norms and inequalities in media and society. Conclusion: the intersections of language, power, and gender identity, as examined through the seminal works of Eckert, McConnell-Ginet, Wood, and Foucault, provide a comprehensive framework for understanding the complex mechanisms through which gender is constructed, performed, and contested within discourse. These scholars' contributions, from the concept of communities of practice to the theories of power, knowledge, offer invaluable insights into the dynamics of gendered communication and the ways in which linguistic practices both reflect and reinforce social hierarchies and gender norms. The methodologies and theories put forth by these academics underscore the transformative potential of discourse analysis in challenging traditional gender binaries and advocating for a more inclusive and equitable conceptualization of gender identity. By continuing to explore the nuances of language and its impact on gender identity, scholars in gender studies and discourse analysis contribute to the broader discourse on gender equality, highlighting the pivotal role of language as a site of social construction and potential resistance. Frequently asked questions. How do language and identity interact within gender studies and discourse analysis? Language and identity are deeply intertwined, with language playing a critical role in constructing and negotiating gender identities. Researchers like Penelope Eckert and Sally McConnell-Ginet have shown that language reflects, shapes, and challenges gender identities within social contexts, emphasizing the performative nature of gender. What are communities of practice? According to Penelope Eckert, communities of practice are social groups where linguistic and social identities are co-constructed. Eckert suggests that within these groups, individuals actively engage in using language to perform and negotiate their gender identities, demonstrating the agency people have in shaping their identities. How does Sally McConnell-Ginet view the relationship between language and gendered norms? McConnell-Ginet explores how language embeds and transmits gendered norms, showing how semantics and conversation structures can reinforce or challenge stereotypes. She emphasizes the dynamic evolution of language and gender relations, advocating for attention to societal changes and individual interactions. What is the significance of variationist sociolinguistics in understanding gender? Variationist sociolinguistics, as applied by Eckert, examines the systematic variation in linguistic choices with social variables like gender, demonstrating how different speaking styles are associated with gender identities and how these styles construct social distinctions. How do Julia T. Wood and Michel Foucault contribute to our understanding of power and inequality in gender studies? Julia T. Wood focuses on how communication styles and practices reflect and reinforce gender inequalities, while Foucault offers a theoretical framework for analyzing how discourses construct knowledge and power relations. Their work collectively illuminates the mechanisms through which gender inequalities are communicated and sustained. What is the concept of the symbolic annihilation of women in media? Introduced by Gay Tuckman, this concept refers to the underrepresentation or stereotypical portrayal of women in media, which marginalizes women's experiences and contributions, reinforcing gender inequalities by upholding societal norms that limit women's roles. How does the male gaze concept by Laura Mulvey relate to media representations of gender? Mulvey's concept of the male gaze critiques mainstream cinema for objectifying women for the pleasure of the male viewer, establishing a dynamic where women are passive objects. This framework has been extended to analyze gender and power in various media forms, highlighting the objectification and marginalization of women. What are the implications of gender performativity and agency in language use? Gender performativity and agency refer to the idea that gender identities are enacted through language, with individuals having the ability to construct their gendered selves through linguistic choices. This concept highlights the potential for language to both conform to and resist societal gender norms. How does intersectionality play a role in the construction of gender identities? Intersectionality recognizes that gender is just one of many social variables that intersect in the construction of identities. Language mediates these intersections, affecting how individuals navigate their complex social identities in relation to gender, race, class, etc. What strategies are suggested for promoting social change through understanding language and gender? Eckert's and McConnell-Ginet's research suggests understanding the role of language in perpetuating gender norms as crucial for challenging these discourses. By critically engaging with and altering communicative practices, there's potential for promoting greater gender inclusivity and equality.